Whoops.
No, I'm okay. But there's a helicopter.
All right, let me make sure everything is looking configured here. Put my little barrier for the... Well, congratulations, Manny Grossman. I just watched The Son of Sam tapes on Netflix, and I think he did a really good job. I think he came across as very knowledgeable, very scholarly, very professional, very intelligent, and I liked he really did a great job both being present, because I understand how you appear in documentaries like this, you appear in these types of shows, and they have a tendency to sort of take away your creative control, or to take away context, and to sort of spin things in the way that the documentary wants it to go, often at the expense of truly representing what an individual says when they're interviewed. And Manny came across as a historian, and I think he did a really good job. At no point did I feel like that Manny had been sort of spun. I think there was one moment where you could tell that they were cherry-picking kind of what he was saying, and it was specifically in regards to the condition of Berkowitz's apartment. They mentioned how, or I guess Manny said that Berkowitz was in this apartment, and it was... I don't remember exactly, but the way that he didn't allow it. You could tell the way that Manny was talking made it very difficult, I think, for anyone to squeeze in there and kind of take him out of the context. But I don't think that David Berkowitz was really going as insane as people like to portray it as. I think that he was, at least not from the standpoint of criminally insane. I think that he was... as Manny predicted, actually, probably 2 years ago now. It's probably been over 2 years that Manny predicted that, or more. Manny predicted that that apartment was deliberately staged prior to the arrest of Berkowitz. And, of course, that ended up being confirmed by David Berkowitz on a recording with Jeff Jones. And so Manny had been teasing us with groundbreaking and earth-shattering information that would, confirm that the cult theory was ridiculous. And I kind of wondered what that was going to be, and I think that is the interviews at Attica that Berkowitz gave to Jeff Jones. Today we're going to talk about anyway. So great job, Manny. It's good to see you moving up in the world from a YouTuber to a genuinely recognized historian of this case. I think he's put in a lot of hard work and effort into that. I think he's done some great work in what would otherwise be considered a solved case. And so we see this a lot in true crime. We see cases where people, it's going, okay, it's solved, nothing to see here, let's all go home. And that's not really how it really works. You guys have probably heard me say this on this channel, that when you identify the offender, the hard work has only just begun to truly understanding the case. And it's very similar with the East Area Rapist case, where before we have that identification and before we have that confirmation of who the offender is, it's very difficult to make well-informed and accurate, statements or to otherwise present well-informed work. And so the hard work begins when we identify that offender. And so he's done a really good job moving from that realm of nerdy YouTuber to true, credible historian in this case, and it's a great thing to see my friend Manny up there. While back, I appeared on Manny's show with a couple others, and we were talking about some toothache article that Berkowitz had published from prison through his weird ministry that he has. And Manny said that he wanted me to tackle the Son of Sam composite sketches, and at the time I thought, well, I want to leave this to Manny. Manny's really the leading expert of this case that we have in this community, and so I didn't really do it. Now, having seen that is a very good documentary. The only objection I have to the documentary was its theme song, actually. I think the rest of it was really well done, and I think that the truth was only limited by these sort of time limitations that Netflix allows. But other than that, very good documentary, and I was happy to see them shut down that cult theory, because we've heard so much about that for such a long time, from whether it's from Thomas Henry Horan or Maury Terry, about this case where they're claiming that there's this whole cult involved in all this garbage nonsense. And really, Carl Denaro didn't do us much help there, because Denaro himself, who was actually shot by Berkowitz, had gone public and said that he didn't think Berkowitz shot him. Well, what he kind of swept under the rug was that he wasn't looking at all when he was shot, and he had no sighting at all of the offender at this scene. So Denaro, I think, is in a situation where he was a victim of this very traumatic event that was brought upon him by this maniac, and I think that there is a sense of emotional, intensity that comes with it for Denaro, where he goes, "Oh, well, I don't think it was Berkowitz who shot me." Well, really, he's looking at this 1993, interview of Berkowitz from this jail where he's claiming that he didn't do it. And I like to be really careful about just taking serial killers and terrorists at their word. Usually when they say something, it's not wise to just accept that without really breaking down the logic behind it, or really trying to comprehend the reality of the situation. And so today we're going to look at some of these composite sketches of the Son of Sam, and I'm going to kind of break down for you guys why I think that these are all the same person, that's being David Berkowitz. First of all, let's get a little shot of Berkey up here, as we call him. Mr. Berkey. Mr. So-called saved. Now, I can't say whether or not someone has truly found redemption in their life, and I don't know whether or not Berkowitz is just pulling our chain and lying to us, but I know Manny, of course, doesn't feel that way. Manny is very vocal about his disbelief as to David Berkowitz's claims. So this is going to be a picture of David Berkowitz, and then we're going to really launch into these composites. I have the folder here ready to go. We'll save this as Berkey Durkey. Why not? And then drop that in on you guys, and you can see what's going on here. Berkey Durkey over here. Everybody's geeky little psychopath here. This is David Berkowitz, the Son of Sam, the man who murdered numerous New Yorkers for fame, glory, and an insatiable craving for attention. Which is funny, because he actually tells you in these Jeff Jones interviews that he was really just trying to get attention the entire time. So, that all being said, let's drop in Comp 1. And I'm not Manny Grossman, so I actually can't tell you the provenance of these without first looking it up, but I think it's mostly irrelevant. What we do know is that the sketches that I'm going to show you are directly related to the Son of Sam case. The first thing to really clarify here with you guys, and I know that I've said this a lot of times, and I know that we've talked about this in the true crime communities, is that a composite sketch is not a photograph. A composite sketch is a witness recollection, and you actually have, at minimum, 2 layers of separation between the offender and his likeness in a composite sketch. The first layer of separation is that we have a witness recollection, and recollection, memory, things like this are never perfect. The other thing that we have is the subjective input of the composite sketch artist. So not only do we have a witness's recollection, but we also have a composite sketch artist trying to convey that information into a drawing, and that's obviously they're not operating from the same brain. So you have the memory that a victim has. In many cases, this can be faulty, flawed, or otherwise influenced by the circumstances. And then you have the composite sketch artist's subjective input as an artist, trying to, hopefully, to the best of their ability, accurately build an objective image that we can look at and to analyze. And another layer of separation that you have, which I guess I had forgotten about, is the artistic style of the composite sketch artist. Not everybody draws a face the same way. Not everyone starts in the same place. Not everyone has the same artistic skill set. We see this with the Presidio Heights sketch in the Zodiac case. That sometimes, unfortunately, the composite sketch artist is little more than a police officer with some experience in drawing who raises his hand and says, "I'd like to volunteer to draw the composite." So this here is one of, and we'll call this Comp 1 because that's how it's saved in my folder. I don't know the provenance of it, and of course I could look it up, but that's really not what we're going to be talking about today. We're just going to be talking about, are the men in these sketches likely to be David Berkowitz? Again, a composite is never going to perfectly represent this person, but I think this is actually a very good composite sketch of this person. What we want to look at, really, is certain features. Look at the nose. And I should even word this better. What we really want to look at is a general likeness of the person. What can we tell about this person based on this sketch? That this is a young white male. He has a kind of geeky looking smoothness about his face. He has this curly, froey looking hair. And we can get a general description of his age. Looking at this person, I would tell you he's approximately 20 to 30 years old. He's a white male, and he has dark hair. And the rest is up to the fine details. In this instance, we can see a very similar nose. The eyes are a little far apart. But again, witness memory, and even such things as lighting can influence a witness's memory of what this person looks like. And so we can see he has this curly black hair. Very similar nose. It kind of goes down from the eyes. I wish you could see my cursor. That would really help things, but I guess I can't do that. What we'll use the New Cokes logo. How's that? As a cursor. Let's see if we can do this. Logo for stream. It's right here. And I'm going to move this all the way to the top. We can hopefully use this as a cursor for you guys too. What the heck? It's supposed to be on top of everything. That's kind of weird. Let's try this. Okay. New Cokes logo is now on the nose of Mr. Offender here in the composite. We could see that his nose kind of comes down from the eyes like this, a little more than halfway below the face, or from the eyes wise. So here's the top. Let's call this the top, the eyes, and then the bottom down here, the chin. So it comes down to about halfway or a little more than halfway. And what do we see over here on Berkowitz is a very similar nose. The eyes are a little far apart, but again, doesn't mean too much. And we can see these arcing dark eyebrows above each one of those. And we can also see, actually, interestingly enough, we can see this protruding lower lip that Berkowitz has in this photograph here. Does this, and the same over here on the composite. Okay. As I go, I think it would be wise to kind of keep the sketches up. And we're going to do Comp 2. Here's Comp 2. of Berkey. I'll blow this up. And what do we see in this kind of composite? The first thing I notice is that he's changed his hair. This is one of those things that I like to scream from the rooftops in these true crime investigations, that offenders are prone to changing hairstyles and or wearing wigs. And when they do so, it influences the overall appearance of the composite and becomes very difficult to tell that it's the same person, and in fact can have a great influence on what you think a person looks like. So obviously Berkey has changed his hair. They've got the same... Oh, there's my little logo here. Whoops. I have to move it up on the top each time, I guess. We can see the same situation going here with the nose. Drops down to about halfway between the point between the eyes and the mouth there. And then flares out. In fact, the nose is a very good likeness. One of the things that the witnesses seem to have gotten really, really accurately in all of these composites, and we're going to see this as we go on, is the appearance of Berkey's nose. It appears that the earlobes are disconnected from the jawline. And we can see the same protruding lower lip. And it's funny, too, when you look at Berkowitz smiling, and I'm going to talk about Berkowitz's... I never thought I would talk about Berkowitz's smile, because Manny Grossman talks about his smile so much that I... it's no fault of Manny, but I become almost nauseated about hearing about Berkowitz's stupid smile. But notice that when Berkowitz smiles, his lip seems to protrude on the bottom on his right side. And in the composite sketches, we see that protruding lower lip on the right side. In the composite sketches, of course, the offender is not smiling, but when Berkowitz smiles, we see that feature. And according to Wendy Savino, who is, according to the NYPD, according to Manny Grossman, according to the circumstantial evidence, did in fact shoot Wendy Savino with a .32 caliber, that Berkowitz was smiling and laughing as he dumped ammunition into her. And so I think what happened is the witnesses were seeing Berkowitz's smile, probably very similar to what you're seeing in this photograph here at his arrest, if not the exact same facial expression that these individuals saw when they were being shot. And so when they get to their composite sketch artist and they're working together to create this likeness of the offender, they seem to convey that protruding lower lip on the right-hand side, which of course is our left. But the composite sketch artist is not drawing a smiling offender for reasons unknown to me. And instead what we see is a closed-mouth offender with this rather straight-looking face, but yet that detail of the lower lip on the right side protruding is very accurately conveyed, at least so far, between these two sketches. So I'd say this is a pretty decent little likeness of Berkowitz, and I considered creating photoshopped images of Berkowitz with each one of these hairstyles, and I think that might be a good exercise to go down one day, but I didn't have time or willingness to do that right now. And so you just have to do it with your mind and envision that Mr. Berkey here is changing his hairstyle, and or possibly wearing wigs. I think murderers wearing wigs is a more common phenomenon than we understand, and it might be one of those secrets that a lot of these guys take to their graves, because they, like all of us, know that a hairstyle can greatly influence what a witness sees in a composite. Let's move on to Comp 3. This is Comp 3 of Berkey, the son of Sam. Now he's parted his hair on the opposite side. And I'm not sure the date. Let's look at the dates of these and see what's going on here. This one is dated 1276. Oh, these appear to even possibly be from the same offense, because we have this 12-9 or 12-7, and then this is a 12-9 here. And what do we see in Comp 3 of Berkey, or rather, the son of Sam, is a very similar nose shape. It amazes me how accurate these witnesses were able to convey the nose of their offender. I think that's the place that they really were most accurate so far. We're looking at 3 composites of this offender, and each time we can see basically an identical nose. It drops down to approximately slightly below the halfway point between the eyes and the mouth, and it seems to flare out on the bottom portion of the nose very similarly. All in all, I'd say great composite. What can we tell about this individual? He's approximately 20 to 30 years old, white male, dark hair. We're beginning to get a decent amalgamated likeness of what the Son of Sam might look like based on these three composites so far. These three composites, I would say, definitely portray the same individual. I think it's ridiculous to say that this is some kind of a cult of different individuals, because we are seeing these same exact facial features between each of these composites. And again, here we go. The shading makes it really hard to see, but where's my cursor? Oh, by golly. Gotten a little carried away here. As we can see, here's my Nuke Hoax cursor. The Nuke Hoax cursor demonstrates that although the shading is not of the best quality on Comp 3 here, we can see that the lower lip protrudes more prominently on the offender's right-hand side than it does on the left, and it notably it protrudes on the offender's right-hand side. On each one of these sketches so far, we're seeing the same mouth and the same nose between all of these composites. It's very obvious when looking at these. So this is Comp 3. Appears to be from the same offense as Comp 2. Not too sure, Manny would know. And then this is Comp 4. Let's drop it in. Again, just a great likeness of David Berkowitz. This is something that people have a really hard time grasping in true crime. They think that a composite sketch is supposed to look exactly like the person, and that just simply couldn't be further from the truth. The reality of the situation is that what can we tell from this composite? This person appears white male, dark hair, protruding lower lip, and a nose that goes a little below halfway point between the eyes and the mouth, and flares out in approximately the same place in all of those. Sorry, I have a bitrate drop here. Jesus, what a nightmare. Stand by. Come on, internet. Zap, what's up, Zap? How are you? Fucking son of a bitch, dude. I'm having some serious internet problems here, guys. Hopefully everything's okay. How are you, Zap? Hopefully you guys are still getting some kind of a picture. I'm not sure what you guys missed, but what can we tell from this offender? He's approximately 20 to 30 years old. He has dark hair, protruding lower lip, a nose that goes slightly below the halfway point between the eyes and the mouth, and flares out in the same place. Okay, so we're going to drop him down here, and let's move on to comp number 5. Guys, my bit rates are terrible in here. It's just, I have to work with that, so... This composite is of substantially lower quality. It might be from the same offense as Comp 4, because we can see him wearing this beanie. It's folded over on the top. The eyes are substantially further apart so far than any of these composites that we've reviewed. Now, what's interesting, too, is let's for a moment not look at the distance of the eyes between each other, but rather their positioning relative to the rest of the face. You can see here that Berkey Durkee on the right has his eyes basically almost to the edge of his face. And so I think that was conveyed by the witness to the composite sketch artist, and the composite sketch artist simply made the eyes probably too small, or otherwise made the spacing between them too wide, but yet did in fact capture this particular feature where Berkowitz's eyes are very near to the sides of his face. And we can see, again, the nose goes, a little more than halfway down the distance between the eyes and the mouth, and it flares out towards the bottom, and yet again we have the protruding lower lip of the Son of Sam. This is something the witnesses did a very good job, especially given the circumstances. They were shot at night. A lot of them were not looking when this happened, and a lot of them underwent very, very traumatic wounds, very traumatic event here. And you can see here that we have, again, the same protruding lower lip on this sketch that we see on Berkey Durkee in real life. In fact, you could argue that on his right-hand side, that protruding lower lip goes more prominently on the right than it does on the left. So very similar likeness in that regard. And yet again, we see the earlobes disconnected from the jawline, and we have the sideburns. This is little sideburns here. They're hard to see because of the nature of his hairstyle, but is what it is. I guess I'm dropping 40% of my frame rates, guys. I'm not sure about that. What's going on there? Jesus. Oh my God. What a nightmare. Now it's claiming good connection. Okay, let's see how this is going. Trying to put up with terrible internet connection, everybody. And we can see that again on Berkowitz here. Same protruding lower lip, similar nose, eyes that go to the edge, earlobes that are disconnected from the jawline, and so forth. So let's move this composite down. Move on to the next one. Okay. Comp 6. This is composite 6. My guess is that the person who assisted in the creation of this composite maybe had the mob on their mind, because this guy looks very mafia-ish. But we are seeing, once again, very, very similar features. When we break them down with Berkowitz next to them, we have the earlobes disconnected from the jawline. We have eyes that come almost to the edges of the face. The nose comes down little far on this one, I think. I think maybe it could have been a little more bulbous at the end and coming up a little bit higher, but is what it is. In fact, the eyebrows are very similar, and we're seeing that Berkowitz has merely slicked his hair back and changed his hairstyle. Then, as we move down, we have great placement of the age lines by either the artist or the witness, or both, because we have age lines going from the part where the bulbous point of the nose starts and then moves down towards the mouth, and we can actually see that very prominently in Berkey Durkee over here. They seem to put a little kind of a mole here on his right side. Now, that could be a defect of the scanning process, because we're seeing these little dots everywhere on this image, and it's very possible that that's not a mole, that's simply a printing defect. In fact, we can see them in places that are not even related to the offender at all, like off to the side on his right here. Let me move my cursor again. We have to use our little new Cokes cursor. We can see a dot here. Oh my god, 49 kilobytes per second. What a joke, sorry. Alright. We have a dot here off to the side, and we have a dot over here off to the side. We have one up by the eye. So I don't think that this is really a mole. I think that this is more of a printing defect. And it's possible that this is a mole of the offender, but it's more likely just, old school scanners, old school technology. Probably a second or third generation copy of the image, but overall I think this is a very good likeness of Berkowitz, actually. What can we tell from this offender? He's approximately 20 to 30 years old. In fact, this one looks a little older than most of them, but not outside the realm of the estimates. We're looking at an offender who's maybe close to 30 years old, dark hair, disconnected earlobes from the jawline. We have the same protruding lower lip in every single one of these sketches so far. In fact, all of these have gotten that, because it's so prominent. What can we see in Berkowitz? Protruding lower lip every single time. Okay, so if this is a cult who's doing these shootings, and like schizophrenic Horan likes to say, or his mentally unstable buddy Maury Terry, if this is a cult, every member of that cult has a protruding lower lip, which I think is very, very unlikely. All right. I mean, look at my mouth. I don't have that same notable thing that Berkowitz has, and so if this is a cult, it seems to be one of their prerequisites on the application. Do you have a protruding lower lip? And they only hire members who have that. So again, oh my God, very, very good likeness of Berkowitz here. And we are now on to comp number 7. So far, we're not seeing anything at all that points against every single one of these sketches being David Berkowitz. I think that the NYPD got their man, and I think that anyone arguing that point is probably on a very bad acid or amphetamine psychosis trip so far. Not surprising for Thomas Henry Horan, who laughs to himself behind a paywall where nobody else is watching anymore. Okay, here's Composite 7. I think this one is the one that we're going to really... This is that one that we're really going to... This is not a good sketch anyway, and I don't think that this is anyone's fault, but just witness probably didn't have a good look. Again, I don't know the provenance of any of these sketches, and so I can't tell you what the circumstances were here, but we're just objectively looking at these composites. But we do actually see that same nose shape. It comes down to little below halfway point and then bulbs out at the end. And again, we have this prominent lower lip. Now, at this crime, he may have been wearing a wig. He may have changed his hairstyle. The witness might have had some kind of an influence. I'm not sure because I don't know where the sketch comes from. I can see here there's a date on there, 1977. It's cut off. And again, I could look it up and find out. But that would really just tarnish our objective analysis point for point of these composites. Is this man that man? What can we tell from this offender despite the low quality of the sketch? Gee whiz, man. I'm getting the worst connection ever. It's fucking brutal. You guys can still hear my audio, I think so. We can see here, protruding lower lip. Offender is probably 20 to 30 years old. In fact, we even have the age lines in the right place. So this is Berkowitz, I think. We have this age line going from where the nose starts down towards the... And it's not something that occurs on every human being. I mean, I have it very subtly, more I guess here. But it doesn't necessarily... I mean, this is not necessarily going to be that situation with every person. So, protruding lower lip. We have eyes that go towards the sides of the head. We don't have ears in this composite to make an assessment of that. If this individual, Berkowitz, Berkey Durkey, was wearing a wig at any of these crimes, I would say that this would be the crime where that's most likely. So, I mean, this bitrate is insane. Sorry, everybody. Hoping that we can just move past that. If it's really bad, I can do the stream again. It's, whatever, and record it or whatever. So, so far, this is a bit of an outlier, but there's really not enough information here to give you an accurate assessment of that. So we'll move on to the next sketch. Now, of course, the cult theorists will go, "Oh, that's the one!" Not the case, because we have those same recurring features in the individual. Move on to the last composite. This is Composite 8. And this is a very famous composite that's pretty much been seen by everybody who's, even remotely looked at this case for a moment. This is the one that was on the front page of every newspaper in the world, it seems. And what can we tell from this individual? Earlobes disconnected from the jawline, eyes that are almost at the edges of the face, nose drops down to below the halfway point between eyes and mouth. It takes a bulbous sort of bulge here. And we have the same age line again. In fact, more prominent on the offender's right side than on his left. And that is a hallmark of Berkowitz when he is smiling. We can see that. Now, we can also see the protruding lower lip in every single one of these composites, number 7 being our most possible outlier, but again, it's not a very good sketch, and so due to that limitation. So let's look at all of these lined up now. This is another thing that people like to miss about composites, the value of a composite. The best phenomenon that we have when we're looking at the potential identity of an offender from his composite sketches is when we have a larger array of sketches like this. We have 8 sketches to work with here. And I think that there's more. There's the Wendy Savino one, which I didn't put on the screen. Because at the time that the cult theorists were arguing these things, they didn't know about the Savino shooting. But if you want, we can look at that too. When you have a large array of sketches like this, we can start to analyze similarities between them. Okay? Point for point, I would tell you the most recurring feature in all of these composites is a protruding lower lip. I think the witnesses did a really good job looking at the nose of the offender. I think they did a really good job looking at the mouth of the offender. And many of them nailed the age line. You'll notice in every single one of these composites, the age line on the right is more prominent than the one on the left. This tells me a couple things. First of all, that this is the same offender in each one of these sketches, it seems. And it also tells me that Berkowitz was almost certainly smiling when he was seen by these witnesses. Now, he wasn't drawn smiling because that's very rare in a composite sketch. You almost never see that. But what we do see is the witnesses were picking out this particular feature. We don't see this too much in the first one, I don't think. Not really. I mean, there's some age lining there, but nothing crazy. And he might not have been smiling at this offense. But when Berkey Durkee smiles, his age lining on his right side becomes more prominent than the one on the left, and we can see that recurring between each one of these composites. If it'll let me select the right one. Okay, that's weird. There we go. Here we go. We're looking at a prominent age line on the right-hand side of the face. So far, we are 2, 4, 8. Not too much there. Actually, a little bit. This could be a printing defect, so I'm going to give the cult theorist the benefit of the doubt on this one and tell them it doesn't occur here. So we're looking at 2 for 8 so far. Or 2 for 4, rather. And I think that we see that in this one, though it's hard to tell because of the printing quality of this. Let's see if I can... Oh, gee whiz. With this, and again we have the prominent age line on the right side of the offender's face. This tells me that this witness probably saw the offender smiling. When Berkey smiles, the age line on his right really kicks off here. Oops. Do that. Okay, move on to this one. I don't like this sketch. I think this is goofy. But we can look at it anyway because that's fair, scientific, and objective. And what do we see on the age line, right-hand side of the face, prominent age line that doesn't exist on the left? That tells me that this witness probably saw Berkowitz smiling. Okay, and then, of course, this one, too. I think that this offender was drawn too skinny at this crime scene, and that could be a matter of just the shading. But actually... there are some other things that we can see in this sketch, such as the prominent cheeks. Berkowitz has these very strong cheeks, and we can see that in this composite here, where they've chosen to add our shading. And we do see the prominent age line on there. I mean, you have to be retarded to not think this is the same person in each one. This is literally... when we have an array of sketches, guys, I'm going to close all comps right now. I'm going to talk just theory right here for you guys. 2, 1. When we have a composite of an offender, the more composites that we have of the offender, the better of an understanding we can develop regarding that offender's probable likeness. And we see very recurring features across, so far, an array of 8 composites. We have prominent age line on the offender's right-hand side, protruding lower lip, and a similar nose across all. That tells me that those 3 things were, 1, the most prominent aspect of what the witness saw, and 2, that the offender is the same in each one of these because it's a very specific set of features. Jump on over here. There's very little else I have to say about this. It's very clear to me that that this is the same person and that Thomas Henry Horan is completely insane. Yeah, I mean, well, you know, murdering, that's possible. I know that Paul Stein was from Exeter. We know that D'Angelo didn't like to kill his neighbors. And actually establish, I don't want to talk about D'Angelo on here because it's a whole rabbit hole we have to get into, but this would seem to suggest against D'Angelo as the Zodiac offender because D'Angelo was probably smart enough to not allow for connections between himself and the victim. Now, is it possible he's a Zodiac? Sure, I think he's a better suspect than Don Chaney by far because he's a confirmed murderer, but and Don Chaney is not. Don Chaney, I think, is a very awesome guy who was trying to help us when he told us that he knew who the Zodiac Killer was. I would hang out with Don Chaney. I think he's an awesome guy. Built his own knives, had a teepee, outdoorsman. You know, could probably hit a man-sized target from 900 yards. Just a burly mountain man. Just cool dude, I bet. So, anyway, all that Zodiac stuff aside, it is obvious. I can't even believe that there's the people who are saying that it's a different offender because of the composites don't look the same. First of all, those people are wrong. The composites are incredibly similar to each other. They really are. What can we tell about the offender at each one of these crimes? We can tell that he's approximately 20 to 30 years old, dark hair, with the exception of this one sketch that come on, guys. I mean, it's not a good sketch anyway. It's a very low quality composite sketch. But funnily enough, we can see, again, prominent cheeks of this offender, prominent lower lip, nose bulbs out in the same place, very similar to what we're seeing. The people that think that these composites don't represent David Berkowitz are the kind of people who think that a composite sketch is a fucking photograph, and it's not. The composite sketch, like I said, is 2 or 3 layers removed from the actual likeness of the offender. It's quite clear to me that each one of these composites is definitely David Berkowitz. There's just simply too many overlapping features in them. And Berkowitz will say anything to get anyone's attention, and I guess one of those things was that he was a member of a cult. He was almost certainly not a member of a cult, and not many people like David Berkowitz. He had some friends, it seems, but overall he came back from Vietnam quite a loner, and really was even a self-proclaimed outcast of society. He was trying to get attention. Hey, he tells you so in those Jeff Jones tapes what he was trying to do. It's very obvious that Berkey Durkee will say almost anything to get his share of newspaper coverage, up to and including shooting people, which is certainly more extreme than lying to Maury Terry. So, was he a member of a cult, or was he lying for attention? I'll let his track record speak for